There's something strange about humans. We evolved on Earth. We eat things from Earth. We breathe Earth's air. We sleep under the same sky as everything else. And yet, somehow, our own planet seems to be trying to kill us. The sun burns our skin. Gravity destroys our backs. Childbirth can be deadly. Our immune systems attack harmless things. And most of us spend our entire lives dealing with some physical problem our bodies apparently never figured out. That's already weird. But then you look at our minds. We're the only species that looks at the stars and asks where we came from. And that raises a question that sounds completely insane. What if the reason humans seem so strangely out of place on Earth is because we didn't originally come from here? Think about sunlight. Every animal on this planet has been dealing with the same sun for millions of years. Animals sit outside, they hunt outside, they sleep outside. They spend their entire lives under the sky, and somehow we're the species that had to invent sunscreen. We literally invented a chemical barrier between our skin and our own star. Of course, there are perfectly reasonable explanations for this. Humans lost most of their body hair. That helped our ancestors cool down while moving through hot environments. Sweating works much better on bare skin, so somewhere along the way we traded fur for cooling, and sunlight became the price. But then there's gravity. Walking upright was one of the biggest changes in human evolution. It freed our hands, it changed how we moved, and it helped transform our entire way of life. But our backs never seemed particularly happy about it. The human spine wasn't designed as a perfectly engineered tower. It was modified from a body that evolved for four-legged movement. Then we stood up, and suddenly the whole structure had to deal with gravity in a completely different direction. 4 out of 5 people will experience back pain at some point. That's not a tiny design flaw. That's a massive percentage of the species. Then there's childbirth. Human babies have enormous heads. Human mothers have relatively narrow pelvises. And those two facts make childbirth unusually difficult. Evolution was pushing the brain towards something bigger. But walking upright put limits on the shape of the pelvis. So the two changes collided, and humans ended up with a problem that has been with us for thousands of generations. Our babies are also born incredibly helpless. A newborn human can't walk, can't feed itself, can't protect itself, can't even properly control its own head. Compared with many other mammals, we're basically born unfinished. And then there are allergies. Your immune system is supposed to protect you, but sometimes it looks at pollen, dust, peanuts, or something completely harmless, and decides that you've been attacked. Millions of people live with immune systems that respond to ordinary parts of the environment as if they're dangerous. Again, there are explanations. But when you stack all of these strange features together, sunburn, back pain, difficult childbirth, allergies, you start to notice a pattern. Not that humans are badly designed, but that evolution doesn't produce perfect organisms. It produces organisms that are just good enough to survive. And that distinction matters. Because maybe the weirdest thing about humans isn't our bodies. It's what happens inside our heads. Animals can recognize danger. They can remember places. They can learn. They can communicate. Some can use tools. Some can solve surprisingly complicated problems. But humans do something different. We think about things that don't exist. We imagine the future. We recreate the past. We invent countries. We invent money. We invent stories. And eventually, we invent machines capable of thinking about the same questions we do. But there's one thought we can't escape. We know we're going to die. A dog can run from danger. An elephant can mourn. A chimpanzee can recognize itself. But humans can sit alone in a dark room and become terrified by something that hasn't happened yet. Death. Not just dying, the knowledge that one day there will be no more you. And we spent thousands of years trying to understand what that means. We built religions. We wrote philosophies. We buried our dead with objects. We created stories about what comes next. We looked at the sky and wondered if something might be looking back. That's an incredible amount of mental energy spent on a problem that doesn't help you find food tomorrow. Or does it? Maybe this strange awareness is exactly what made us different. Maybe intelligence isn't a flaw. Maybe it's the reason we're here. Because eventually, that same brain that became obsessed with death became obsessed with everything else. fire, numbers, maps, medicine, machines, the stars. And once humans started looking upward, the question became even stranger. If life exists here, could it exist somewhere else? And if life can move between worlds, could Earth itself have received life from somewhere else? That's where the alien idea stops sounding like science fiction and starts becoming a scientific hypothesis. There's an idea called Panspermia. The basic idea is simple. Life, or the ingredients needed to create it, might be able to travel between worlds. Not necessarily intelligent aliens flying here in spaceships. Something much stranger. Life hitchhiking through space. A microorganism inside a rock. Organic molecules carried by an asteroid. A fragment of one world eventually reaching another. And if that sounds impossible, remember where you are. Earth isn't sitting alone in a quiet universe. It's being constantly hit by material from space. Asteroids, comets, dust, rocks. Some of those objects contain organic molecules. The raw chemistry associated with life isn't unique to Earth, and that raises an uncomfortable question. What if Earth didn't create everything from scratch? What if some of the ingredients arrived here? Or, in the more extreme version, what if life itself arrived here? In 1973, Francis Crick, one of the scientists who helped reveal the structure of DNA, co-authored a paper proposing an idea called directed panspermia. The proposal was not that little green aliens were secretly walking around Earth. It was much more specific. An intelligent civilization somewhere else could theoretically have deliberately sent microorganisms into space, seeding another world with life. It's an extraordinary idea, but there's an important distinction. Crick wasn't proving that humans came from aliens. He was asking whether life on Earth might have been deliberately introduced. That's a very different claim. And that's where the mystery gets complicated, because even if life can travel between planets, that doesn't mean humans did. And there's a huge difference between saying life might have come from somewhere else and saying we are aliens. The evidence for the second claim is nowhere near strong enough, but the first question is scientifically interesting because Earth appears to have become inhabited relatively early in its history, and meteorites have shown that complex organic molecules can exist in space. So the universe clearly has the ingredients. The question is whether those ingredients ever crossed the distance between worlds and started something here. Now comes the problem. Almost every strange human feature we've looked at has another explanation. And it's an explanation that's much less exciting, but much more supported. Evolutionary mismatch. Evolution doesn't plan ahead. It doesn't sit down and design a species. It takes whatever already exists, changes it slightly, and keeps whatever helps an organism survive long enough to reproduce. That's why evolution can produce bodies that work without producing bodies that are perfect. Our backs don't have to be flawless. They just have to work well enough. Our ancestors didn't need to eliminate every possible source of back pain. They needed to survive. Our skin didn't need to be immune to sunlight. Our ancestors needed to stay cool enough to hunt and survive. Childbirth didn't need to be easy. It only needed to produce enough surviving children for the population to continue. And our allergies don't prove our immune systems were designed for another planet. They can emerge from an immune system that's reacting too strongly to things that aren't actually dangerous. Suddenly, the alien explanation starts losing pieces. The evidence that looked strange starts looking like exactly what evolution would produce. An imperfect organism built by millions of small compromises. And there's another problem. If humans were truly alien to Earth, our biology should give us some unmistakable evidence of it. But it doesn't. Our cells use the same fundamental biological machinery found throughout life on Earth. Our DNA is deeply connected to the rest of Earth's living organisms. We aren't biologically separate from the planet. We're part of the same tree. That doesn't make the question boring. It makes it more interesting. Because now the mystery changes. Maybe the strange thing isn't where humans came from. Maybe it's what happened after we got here. For most of Earth's history, life changed slowly. Species appeared, species disappeared. Some became better adapted to their environments, others went extinct. But humans did something unusual. We started accumulating information. One generation learned something. The next generation didn't have to start over. They could build on it. A tool became another tool. A discovery became another discovery. A simple idea became a complicated one. And eventually, the process started accelerating. Stone tools, fire, agriculture, writing, cities, engines, electricity, computers, the internet, artificial intelligence. The timeline gets shorter and shorter and shorter. For millions of years, our ancestors lived as hunter-gatherers. Then human civilization started changing faster than almost anything else in the history of life. And that's where the alien question gets tempting again. Because what if this extraordinary intelligence wasn't supposed to happen? What if something unusual happened to our lineage? A change in language, a change in social learning, a change in cooperation, a change in the way knowledge was transmitted. Maybe there wasn't one magical moment. Maybe several things happened at once. And once culture became cumulative, the process fed itself. Knowledge created technology, technology changed society, society created more knowledge, and that knowledge created better technology. The result was an explosion, not biological evolution, cultural evolution. And that may be the real reason humans seem so different. We don't just inherit genes, we inherit information. Every child is born into a world containing thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. You don't have to rediscover fire. You don't have to invent writing. You don't have to figure out electricity from scratch. You start where everyone before you stopped, and then you add something. That simple ability may have been enough to turn one ordinary animal into the most powerful species on Earth. So are we aliens? Probably not. At least, there's no good evidence that humans arrived here from another planet. The evolutionary evidence points strongly in the other direction. We're deeply connected to Earth's other organisms. Our biology fits into the same history. Our ancestors existed here long before modern humans appeared, and most of the things that make humans seem badly adapted have plausible evolutionary explanations. So the simplest answer is still the obvious one. We're from Earth. But there's something fascinating about that answer, because it means the strangest creature on this planet is still a creature from this planet. An animal that developed from the same ancient life as everything else. An animal that once lived in small groups and eventually built cities. An animal that once feared the dark and eventually built machines that could see across the universe. We didn't arrive from another planet. We evolved here. And somehow, we became capable of wondering whether we didn't. Maybe that's the real mystery, not whether we're aliens. But how a species born on one small planet became intelligent enough to look at the universe and ask where it came from. So, what if we are the aliens? The honest answer is, there's no convincing evidence that we are. The strange things about the human body don't prove it. Our intelligence doesn't prove it. Our destructive behavior doesn't prove it. And panspermia doesn't prove it. But the question is still worth asking, because science doesn't advance by refusing to ask strange questions. It advances by asking them and then trying to destroy them with evidence. Maybe humans are simply the result of billions of years of evolution, a bizarre combination of accidents, compromises, survival, and chance. Or maybe one day, we'll discover that the story of life on Earth is stranger than we imagined. But until that day, we have one undeniable fact. We are here. We evolved on this planet. And yet every night, we look up at a universe that is almost impossibly large and wonder where we really came from. Maybe that's not evidence that we're aliens. Maybe it's simply the strangest thing an Earth creature has ever done. Look at the stars. I wonder if somewhere out there, something is asking the exact same question about us. And that's the strange part. If they are, they might be looking at Earth and wondering, what if we are the aliens? Like the video, subscribe so that you won't miss this type of content, and share your thoughts in comment section.